Hello and welcome to today's episode of Tanbi-ha, where we dive into literature, culture, and the arts. I'm your host, Kasumi, and today we'll be exploring a fascinating literary movement from Japan called Tanbi-ha, or Aestheticism. This movement emerged during the late Meiji and early Taisho periods, influenced by a parallel movement in Europe, but with a uniquely Japanese twist. Tanbi-ha, which translates to a group devoted to the pursuit of beauty, focused on art for art's sake. Writers and artists of this movement rejected moral and social concerns, focusing instead on the sensual and aesthetic aspects of life. In Europe, figures like Charles Baudelaire in France and Oscar Wilde in England are often associated with this idea. Wilde famously said, "All art is quite useless," meaning that art should exist solely for the pleasure it gives, free from any moral or political obligation. In Japan, Tanbi-ha was introduced at the end of the 19th century by the literary giants Moriogai and Ueda Bin. These figures were crucial in translating and bringing Western aesthetic ideas into the Japanese intellectual sphere. The movement gained traction in Japan's literary circles through publications like Subaru and Mita Bungaku. Authors such as Kitahara Hakushu, Kinoshita Mokutaro, Nagai Kafū, and Tanizaki, Jun'ichirō became leading proponents of this new aesthetic focus. But what did Tanbi-ha mean in the context of Japan's rapidly modernizing society? At the time, Japan was undergoing significant change, heavily influenced by Western ideals and industrial growth. Many writers, particularly in movements like Naturalism, were concerned with social and political issues. However, the Tanbi-ha writers took a different path. They focused instead on beauty, art, and emotional depth, offering a refuge from the chaotic transformation of society. Moriyogai's short story, Maihime, the Dancing Girl, is a great example of how Tanbi-ha explored these themes. The story focuses on love, emotional turmoil, and the aesthetic beauty of its characters' lives, set against the backdrop of cultural and personal conflict. Similarly, Jun'ichirō Tanizaki's works like Naomi reflect his fascination with Western beauty and modernity. Tanizaki often explored the tension between traditional Japanese aesthetics and the allure of Westernization, infusing his stories with a sense of sensuality and decadence. While Tanbi-ha in Japan had clear ties to its European counterparts, it also carried a distinct Japanese sensibility. Japanese aesthetics had long valued concepts like mono no aware, the awareness of the beauty in fleeting moments, and wabi-sabi, the appreciation of imperfection. These ideas were deeply ingrained in the Japanese understanding of beauty and gave Tanbi-ha a more introspective, less provocative tone compared to the often rebellious stance of European aestheticism. One example of this is Nagai Kafū, a writer who merged modern aesthetics with a deep nostalgia for the fleeting beauty of Edo period Japan. His novel, The River Sumida, captures this sense of loss and beauty as Tokyo modernized, reflecting the tension between the old and the new. In the end, Tanbi-ha wasn't just about creating beautiful art. It was a philosophical stance. It stood in opposition to both the moralism of movements like Naturalism and the utilitarianism of Japan's modernizing society. Instead, Tanbi-ha sought to remind us of the importance of beauty, emotion, and the transient nature of life. Thank you for joining me today on Nanpusha. I hope this exploration of Tanbi-ha has given you a new perspective on the importance of beauty in both art and life. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and sharing with friends. Until next time, take care and find beauty in the everyday moments around you. では、また。